Like
You
this,
look
right?
great.
Okay, good.
Okay, folks, we're beginning to go live. We're going to be giving it just another minute or two before we add everyone to our screen. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give it one moment. Okay, I see us on Facebook and I see us on YouTube. I don't see us on LinkedIn, Jacqueline.
Okay, let me check that.
While you check, I would like anyone who's listening to know that we're just giving it another minute or so before we start our webinar, reading the tea leaves, the October Visa Bulletin. We're just working through a couple technical things, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
I'm seeing us on LinkedIn.
Great. Okay, let us. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Jacqueline, if you wouldn't mind, just while I'm doing the quick introductions, maybe periodically check the three platforms, make sure everything's working okay. Thank you. Thank you for anyone who's joining us right now for this VEMA Staffing Partners webinar. The actually, we're in September. So technically it's the September webinar, Reading the Tea Leaves, the October Visa Bulletin with VEMA Staffing Partners. This webinar is streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. On all three of those platforms, you should be able to write comments to which we should be able to see your questions, and we'll answer them as soon as we possibly can. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and switch into our deck mode. And move Mike Hammond up there. All right. Before we get started with our topic today, I just wanted to very quickly introduce our company. For those who are joining us and may not already be aware, VEMA Medical Staffing, which is the sister or family company to VEMA Staffing Partners, was the original business in 2003. Both of our organizations provide international nurses to acute care hospitals across the United States. We work with international nurses from over 25 plus countries, and we offer direct hire and temp-to-hire opportunities. We can build a program with any healthcare system that is unique for their needs. And for the nurses, we sponsor green cards by way of EB3 visas, which we'll be discussing today, TN visas, E3s, which are for Australia citizens. And then, of course, we work with those international nurses who are getting their nursing degrees in the U.S. as F1 visa holders. And we also do have some cases where we work with those who visa hold a temporary protected status or asylum cases. So we have a lot of opportunities for those out there. If you ever are aware of anyone who would like some questions answered about those programs, either for the hospital side or for the nurse sponsorship, just drop us a line. Okay, so next screen, I want to introduce our speakers today. Thank you for joining us. We have CEO and founder of VEMA Medical Staffing, that's Michael Conley on the screen. We also have next little bubble, attorney Michael Hammond from Corporate Immigration Partners. Hello. Joining me today as co-pilot is my dear friend Jacqueline Sanchez. She works with us at VEMA and Valley as an executive assistant. And I am, of course, Roxy Moser, or the Director of Immigration Services. So many of you who are already working with VEMA and Valley are familiar with me, and I hope to become more familiar with those who may join us down the line. But enough about me, and let's move on to the mics. So today, we're going to be covering all questions regarding the October Visa Bulletin, which is, of course, the first of the 2025-2026 fiscal year for the Department of State. That means it's sort of a reset or new start into what we may or may not see for the future year. While we're going through covering the visa bulletin and other topics, I just want everyone who's watching to know that you're more than able to write comments on your platforms. We'll get to the questions as soon as we can. If they are applicable during a particular topic, we'll try to cover it. But if we don't, just hang on till the end when we do our Q&A session, and we'll try to cover them then. If you are interested in sponsorship, our URLs are listed all over this presentation, and you certainly are able to easily find us with the Google search. And definitely reach out to us if you have any questions about how that works. Today, our topics. So just a quick note, I thought it was worth mentioning because the Visa Bulletin is this hot topic every time we do these webinars and every time we talk with a prospective nurse or even hospital clients who are interested in working with us. They want to know what is the Visa Bulletin and how does it work. But in order to understand that, we want to explain how the EB3 green card visa process works. And we're focusing on the EB3 green card process because this is the topic under which our October visa bulletin will be our conversation will be framed. So we're going to go through a very quick primer of how it works for those F1 students living here in the US to achieve adjustment of status to green card. And then we'll also cover how it works for those living abroad and working overseas, seeking a green card to come here to the US. After that, I'll have Mike Hammond read those tea leaves. He's going to tell us all his secrets of everything he knows. And rub the crystal ball if we could. Hint, it is not that easy to do, and he'll comment more on that. And we'll cover the two tables that are most important: the dates for filing and the final action date table. We're gonna talk about a couple timeline and milestone things after that. And then time permitting, we'll of course describe to you folks what kind of opportunities we have to work with VEMA and Valley Medical Staffing. And then we'll cover some Q&As. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask that Mike Conley, if you wouldn't mind, hello, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much, Roxy.
Great. I'd love for you to kind of walk us through how it would work for an F1 student who is either about to graduate or is graduating and choosing to work with Valley and VEMA on green card sponsorship and job placement. How does the visa process work?
Well, it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward for a F1 student. After they graduate, pass NCLEX, they've most likely already applied for occupational practical training, so they're eligible to start working right away. We have clients that are hiring those nurses either through a direct hire model or through a staffing model where the nurse actually works for us for the length of the contract. So they'll start working, and within a month of their start, we will file an I-140 for them. That's the first application. That's the visa petition that we file. When we file that I-140, they get a priority date, the PD, as it's shown here. And that's based on the date of filing, not when it's approved or anything else. It's the date that it was received by the USCIS. So the important thing about the priority date is that is how you move on to the next process, which is adjusting your status. Now, right now, the priority date, as Mike's going to talk about later, is it takes a while. So what we do is we'll file the I-140, and the approval usually takes 12 to 16 months. I know people talk about, well, what about expedited filing of the I-140? It's a waste of money. Doesn't matter. It won't speed up anything at all. So we don't bother doing it. Because we think that the USCIS gets enough money as it is, and they don't need money for doing nothing more. So when the priority date eventually becomes current, that's when we can file your I-485 adjustment of status, along with the I-765 which is the work authorization, and the I-131 advanced parole, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike Hammond, allows you to travel. So up until we get to that point where we can file the I-485 and that I-765 and get you a new work permit, our job is to help you stay in status and eligible to work. And we do that through OPT. We have schools that we work with that provide CPT, curriculum practical training while you're going to school. So you're going to have to invest in yourself, invest in staying in school and in taking classes and getting master's degree. And God forbid you have to get a doctorate too, but things are taking a while. But that's how we keep you in status up until we can get the new work permit. At that point in time, after we file the I-485 and you're current, it's not that long before the green card shows up. So that's the way we handle the onshore students on the F1 process.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, very much. Next, we're going to cover the consular process. So for those living abroad who may be already working on the bedside and are interested in moving to the U.S.
Yeah. So it's essentially the same, only you're doing it offshore. We file the I-140 and we get your priority date. Now that's, again, it's your place in line. So we get that filed, and then again, it's taking 12 to 16 months to get the I-140 approved. Once it's approved, it's sent to the National Visa Center. Now the National Visa Center is probably not going to be working on it until we get closer to the to your priority date being current. So it'll take a long time to get it approved, and then it'll sit at the MVC stage until we get close to your priority date being current. Once they start processing at the National Visa Center, you will eventually become what's called document qualified. That means at that point in time, you're all ready to go. You're just waiting for your priority date to become current so we can get the embassy interview set up for you. Again, I'm going to have Mike talk a little bit about the timing of all of this. But one of the things I've told every nurse during retrogression is that it's both a curse and a blessing. It's going to take you a long time to get here. But the positive out of that is it gives you the opportunity to prepare yourself for success once you get here. And that can include, trying to, get to the most advanced tertiary facility and get into the most advanced units where you live. It might include going overseas to Australia, UK, to the Gulf, to get experience working in hospitals there. But it gives you the opportunity during that 2.5 years that you're going to be waiting to make yourself better prepared for success in the United States. And there's nothing worse than a nurse that doesn't do the work to be prepared when they come here because they're unhappy, they're scared, they have no confidence, and they struggle. So take advantage of this time to get yourself prepared so that when you get here, it's easy.
Good points, Mike. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's move to the nitty-gritty. Now, just the last two slides we went over, the F1, we're going to start with those folks, Mike Hammond, attorney for Corporate Immigration Partners. With respect to the F1 student, as Mike Conley just described, the dates for filing is a table they'll want to pay attention to as it relates to filing their adjustment of status document after their I-140 has been approved. So I'd like you to start there, Mike Hammond, if you don't mind, just reviewing how, again, that works for making sure your priority date is cleared with the dates for filing chart and getting to that I-485 filing, and then we'll look over the final action dates. Take it away.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Roxy. So what Roxy's got up here on this slide is the October 2025 bulletin. That's the bulletin that was just released last week on Friday night. And the way you read this bulletin is you look for your country of birth. It is your country of birth, not your country of citizenship. And you see 4 countries that have their own categories: China, India, Mexico, the Philippines. Everybody else falls into the other category, which we often call ROW, rest of the world. And then you find your category. For RNs, you're in the 3rd category. That's why we call them EB3. EB simply stands for employment based. And then you go across the column, and we see that for most of the people on this call, you're either from the Philippines or the rest of the world. We see that the date for filing chart is July 1st, 2023, and they match right now. They sometimes are separate and have different dates, but that's the date you look at. And then you're in the U.S. That's why we're focusing on right now the U.S. candidates. So you've had an I-140 pending, approved, and now you've been sitting and waiting for a while due to retrogression, and you see the date for filing chart comes out, and your priority date happens to be, let's say, May 1st, 2023, and you look at this and you're like, hey, I'm now current. And that's great, and that's great news. There's a second step to this. We have to look at what the USCIS says. So the visa bulletin is put out by the Department of State every month. Then the USCIS, usually within a few days, sometimes the next day, puts out a notice that says whether they will honor the date for filing chart or the final action date chart for purposes of filing 485. So it's like a 2-step part. Because what we want to know is, can I file my 485? And the visa bulletin has to be current first. Then we have to look at the USCIS chart. For October, USCIS has said they will honor the date for filing chart. For example, the month we're in now, September, the USCIS was only honoring the final action date chart. So it does vary each month. But as soon as we see that, that means that we are eligible to file the 485. And obviously with the 485, we file the EAD application, and the you can file also the advanced parole, the travel document as well. So, and the date for filing chart is important for filing the 485. It does not mean that you can be adjudicated yet, though. Even though you're in the U.S., and this is the most important chart for you, you also are going to care about the final action date chart, because the final action date chart has to be current before you can actually be approved. So if you're in the U.S., both charts are really important. In the U.S., the process can involve an interview. It's not required. They've been waiving most of them. But for people who are interviewed, you cannot actually ultimately get approved until you're also current in the final action date chart. Okay, so we flip to the final action date chart now. If I want to make this overly simplistic, the final action date chart is the most important chart for individuals who are overseas, offshore nurses, because the date for filing chart doesn't mean as much. In theory, for offshore candidates, the date for filing chart is when the NVC should process your case. However, the NVC does not always follow that rule. They often do it based upon workload. So sometimes they will start working on your case earlier than that, sometimes later, but nonetheless. The final action date chart means I can go for an interview and I can ultimately be approved. So that is the most important date for you. Now, while we've got the charts up, let's talk a little bit about what Roxy calls reading the tea leaves, and kind of understanding a little background as to why October is important and what has happened and what it means. And the reason why October is important is because October 1st is the beginning of the government's fiscal year. So the government does not work off of a calendar year like the rest of us, you know, January to December. They start October 1st of each year, and it runs until next September. The other thing that's really important to note is the government works off of a use it or lose it system for green cards or immigrant visas. So right now, the statutory amount that is set is $140,000. It's actually usually a little more than that we end up getting allotted to us for a variety of reasons that aren't terribly important for this call. But nonetheless, so if those 140,000 immigrant visas or green cards are not issued in a given year by September 30th, then they're lost. Okay, they're simply wasted, and so that makes the system inefficient, and that means somebody didn't get one. So one of the goals is to always, for the government, is to use up as many, get as close as they can to that 140,000 by the end of the fiscal year. So oftentimes when we get close to the end of the fiscal year, we call it summer retrogression, we will see dates move backwards, or we'll see dates stagnate and not move at all, or we'll even see a U in a category that means unavailable. That means they've all been used. So for example, right now, there was an announcement made like a week and a half ago that all of the EB2 categories for the year have been used up. And maybe the week before, all of the EB1 were used up. And we look at that and we go, oh, that sounds bad. They were used up. But the reality is that's good, because that means all of them were used and we're going to have very few wasted this year. So October, we always look forward to the bulletin because it's typically the first time things move in a while. And when this bulletin came out Friday night, if you were outside and you heard crying in the distance, well, that was me and other people who looked at the bulletin and said, well, it did not move forward as fast as we were hoping. So for the final action date chart, if you were in the rest of the world, it didn't move at all. The October bulletin sits exactly where it is. And there's some theories behind that, but the bottom line is it didn't move. For the Philippines, you moved about 6 weeks. So that's good. That's a little bit of movement. We like that. And then let's flip back to the date for filing chart for a second there, Rox. The date for filing chart that's now July 1st, it moved forward 2 months for both rest of the world and the Philippines. Couple observations about the visa bulletin when we kind of look into this. It's easy for us to look and say, what did it look like in September versus October? That's an easy kind of thing. And that gives us some idea if it didn't move much or it moved just a little bit. Some of the categories, for example, India jumped forward quite a bit, things like that. But one of the things that we try to look at when we're dealing with registered nurses is what did it move year over year? So it may have only moved 2 months in the last bulletin, but overall we had about a 4.5 month movement from final action date to final action date, and about a 4 month year over year. And then here's one of the nice things that we can look forward to. I guess this is the part where we're reading the tea leaves, is we're looking at the date for filing chart, which is ahead of the final action date chart. And typically what this means is the Department of State has projected, based upon all of the visas that applications that are filed and pending or approved or in the queue, is that they expect by the end of the fiscal year for the final action date chart to meet up to the date for filing chart. So today we're sitting in April 2023. They expected to move to July 2023 by the end of next year. So if you are someone whose priority date is in 2024, you should not really have any expectation that you're going to get approved in this next, or be current in this next fiscal year. So it gives us some indication. Now, it
Mike,
does not. Yeah, go ahead, Roxy. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just so I'm clear. How common is it? Is it very regular that occasion occurs where the Department of State expects the final action to match the dates for filing by the end of the fiscal year?
It is the way the program. Yeah, it's the way the program's been created since they started the date for filing chart, which I think was about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
And they don't always get to it, but they get close. This last year with the their date for filing chart actually moved forward maybe 6 or 8 weeks during the course of the year. Generally, it doesn't move forward, but this past year it did. So they actually kind of exceeded a little bit of what they thought. So it's a pretty good indicator. It's not perfect, but it's a decent indicator.
Okay, it's a guardrail and a good indicator, but never 100% certain. But this
Correct.
Is good news.
That's right. Yeah. So that'll give you a little bit of an idea. And as Mr. Conley there said earlier, one of the things that's nice about kind of knowing that if you're sitting in late 2024 and you're not going to be current for the next year, year and a half or so, that overseas assignment, you're not having to worry about should I or shouldn't I? Am I going to have enough time? Can I finish it, etc.? You know the answer. There's some certainty to it that barring any type of legislative change, you can take that assignment and you're going to be fine. Okay. So that's the basics of the chart and why October is so important and why we look forward to it each year. Now, people are always asking, what do I expect next month? And traditionally, we've had limited movement early on, but we've had a little bit. Since the rest of the world did not move at all, the feeling is that they already have a lot of individuals who've already gone through interviews in September that are not being approved because they're out of immigrant visas until October. So they have a lot of processing that they'll finish in October to kind of clean up cases. And I know for us here in the U.S., we've certainly seen that with quite a bit of 45s who've gotten updated medicals and things like that. And then we're expecting approvals in October. So I do expect some forward movement in the November bulletin for rest of the world. And so I do think there will be a little bit of movement there. Probably not significant, but a little bit.
Do you think the movement, do you think both charts will move, or are you referring specifically and more so to the final action?
Final action. The date for filing chart traditionally does not move all year long.
Okay.
And if it does move, in the past, we've only seen it move in third quarter, which is spring. That's the first time we've seen it move as they get a better sense of what the demand is looking like, who's actually using, because what they see are who's in the queue. What they don't really see until someone takes some action is, are they moving forward? And let me give you an example of why that's a little more complicated than it sounds. Let's say you are married and you have 2 children and your spouse is also an RN. And so both of you have filed I-140s because that makes sense. Maybe you're going to the same employer, maybe different employers, it doesn't matter. Most spouses, it makes sense to file 2. In the eyes of the government, each of those petitions counts as 4 people. You, your spouse, 2 kids. So they look at you and they see 8 people. Well, there's really not 8 people. There's just 4 of you. And let's say that halfway through your process with your spouse, his hospital says, we're going to end our program. We're not going to sponsor anymore. It's taken too long. And so your spouse says, well, I'm going to find a new employer. They reach out to VEMA, who says, yeah, sure, we'll take you. We'll recapture your old priority date. And they file for you again. Now the government looks at you as 12 people.
Wow.
The reality is you're just still 4. You haven't had 8 more kids. You're not 12, you're 4. And so that's why the numbers get fairly skewed pretty quickly. And that's why often they'll make changes throughout the year as maybe you go for your interview and they realize, well, you're only 4, and then they cut out the other 8. So that's kind of some reason as to why.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the next topic relative to reading the tea leaves is what can we expect any change? Is there some hope for retrogression getting better? One of the things that Valley and VEMA have been very active in supporting is legislative relief. There is a bill that was introduced last week or the week before, the Healthcare Worker Reduction Act, Resiliency Act, I think they're calling it this year. But one thing that's been introduced the last 3 sessions of Congress, it would provide a temporary visa allotment, green card allotment of an extra $25,000 taken from years in the past where we did not use all that we were allocated. For example, we had a year, 2021, I believe it was, where we had about 150,000 visas that went unused. And so we're trying to take about 25,000 of those. One of the nice things about the bill that was introduced is it has two co-sponsors, one a Republican, one a Democrat. And so that's nice out of the Senate. We'll see the progress in that. I know we've got some attorneys from our office who are going to DC in next week or the week after, I forget which, I'm not one of them, but that will be going and lobbying on Capitol Hill with a bunch of other organizations. So there is some legislation out there that would potentially provide some relief, and we're certainly looking forward to that. And we'll continue to push that. I'm not counting on it happening tomorrow. It will not happen tomorrow, but you should know that there are efforts being made by your employers in order to push that as much as they can. Right? Okay, that's.
I think you need to point out, Mike, that it's happened in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
These kinds of bills have gone through Congress and been signed by the president, and we were able to recapture. It has been a long time since that happened, and immigration is kind of weird right now. But the bill's been put forward, and it's bipartisan. And I think that people are beginning to be a little bit worried about what's going to happen to hospitals, especially out in the rural parts of America. So we're going to keep pushing and keep our fingers crossed.
Absolutely. And just for folks, that is the Healthcare Workforce Resiliency Act that that Mike Hammond brought up and Mike Conley was just referring to, which is to recapture 25,000 visas that were unused to specifically apply to registered nurses, and we're hoping that will pass. There's also another, I believe, 15,000 visas they hope to apply to physicians as well. Mike Hammond, I want you to continue if there are other things you want to comment on, but this just made me think about retrogression, and in my experience, certainly in the recent years working with nurses, which is retrogression is no fun for those who are really wanting to make the move or get their green card and continue with their work and their lives. Can you tell us a little bit about how common it is, the situation that we are in with retrogression and the slower movements with the visa bulletin? In other words, for those who aren't as familiar with the history, the context of that, is this a fairly common state that we're in?
Sure. So first of all, what causes retrogression is a real simple supply and demand. There is a supply of 140,000 immigrant visas per year, and that includes the worker and the family. So with the hypo I gave earlier of a spouse with two kids, you take 4 off the 140,000, not just one. So it's not per worker, it's per entire family. So there's only 140,000, and there's more that want to come to the U.S. Retrogression has been around as long as I have been around. Mr. Conley and myself, I think when we started this in 1953 or 4, the retrogression was really long then, and it's still long today. It varies up and down based upon a variety of major economic influences. And for some countries, for example, if you were from India, the EB3 wait has been 15 years since maybe the early 1990s. So it's been that way forever. The China category has been backed up for at least 10 years or longer, simply because a lot of engineers come from China, a lot of scientists come from China, and from India, a lot of IT workers. And so there's just been a huge influx. We've had retrogression, except for some unusual times. Retrogression kind of went away a little bit. Mike recalled that back in, I think it was 04 or 05, we had a temporary fix, a bill very similar to what we're doing right now, that gave us, I believe, 35,000 extra numbers left over from prior years. So we had a short period of time. I think it lasted about 3 years. We did not have retrogression. Most recently, in 2020, 21, 22, we had limited to no retrogression because of COVID-19. COVID-19 created a situation where individuals were not traveling into the U.S. because the consuls were closed. and family immigration was essentially cut off. And there's a law that says if family numbers are not used, they get dumped or spill over into the employment side. And since there were no family people coming in, the employment side got huge numbers provided to us, which created a feeling of no retrogression. We knew the line was there. We just knew that for right now, it was not going to affect us. We've also had some other periods of time in 08, 09, when there was an economic crisis, recession, or depression, depending on which news station you watched, that retrogression was limited because there was not as big of a demand. But it has been around for a while. We're at the kind of 2.5 to 3 year mark now is what we're looking at. That's a little on the long side to make this work well, but we're hoping for some relief. But yes, it is normal. Sad.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, that is the unfortunate state of affairs. But if there maybe is a silver lining, it is that it does move forward. It will continue. The visa will happen for those who have patience and perseverance. So for those of you joining us today and are thinking about getting your visa sponsored, we really can't stress enough how important it is to start now and start working on the process because of things like waiting for the tables in the visa bulletin. Mike, do you have any further comments on the visa bulletin?
Well, the only other thing I would say, and you kind of alluded to it right there, is oftentimes I'll talk to someone who'll say, oh man, it's like 2.5 years, it's 3 years. That's so long. I don't think I want to do it. And then 3 months later, they'll call me again and we'll talk through it again. It'll still be 2.5, 3 years. And if they would have moved forward at that time, they'd be 3 months into it. And so I think sometimes we have to understand that there's things we can control. You can pass NCLEX. You can get a job. You can get your I-140 file, get your party date in the queue. You can work a bedside. You can work on your skills. You can pass your English tests. All these kinds of things that you can control and you can do, focus on those things. The rest of this will take care of itself. I can't control it. You can't control it. Your employer can't. No one can. So those are out of our control. If we focus on what we can control, we're going to do a little bit better. And so I think I would always say, do what you can do and do it now. And we'll worry about the rest of it as it happens.
That's right. Eyes on the prize, as they say.
Yeah, I think it's simply put, if you don't get in line, you're not in line.
Yeah.
So
Right.
You're better to get a priority date now and then take care of all the stuff that you can control in your life and prepare yourself for ultimately getting here. But if you just keep waffling and decide, well, I don't know, it's going to take so long, I don't want to do it, you're not in line. So get in line and then take care of the stuff you can take care of, like Mike says.
Yep, I agree. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the timelines and milestones. We did mention this, or Mike, you talked about this a little bit at the top of the hour when you walked through the visa petition process. But Mike Hammond, I'd love for you to tell us as the attorney how long you're seeing consular cases take approximately, and if you could break it down by the sections from, for instance, the I-140 visa petition to perhaps how long the NVC stage takes, etc. Can you walk us through that for consular first, and then we'll talk about F1?
Sure. So for the I-140 process is right now, sadly, continue to get longer and longer and longer. We're seeing most are in the 16-month mark. We've even got some that are as long as 20 months. Again, on one hand, it's frustrating. It leaves a lot of uncertainty. However, your priority date's already locked in. So that is the key kind of thing. You're already in line. You're already moving forward in the long retrogression line while you're waiting for the queue. Once things get to the National Visa Center, or once you're approved, National Visa Center is processing fairly quickly. You turn your stuff around fairly quickly. They're DQing fairly quickly. Most people, barring anything unusual going on, are through the National Visa Center less than 6 months, some even quite a bit faster than that. And then getting an interview, it varies a lot depending on what consulate you're at. Keep in mind, two things have to happen to get an interview. Number one, you have to be DQ'd. Number two, you have to have a current priority date. They do not necessarily take things in order. So you have a priority date of February 2nd, your friend has one of March 9th, your friend might get an interview before you. It's not an exact science of first in, first out at the consulate. It also varies quite a bit because some consulates have like a self-serve portal where you go online and you pick your own interview date. Others don't have that, and they'll assign you a date. They just had rule changes in the consulate about, let's see, it went into effect last Friday, I believe, September 6th or something, so maybe 2 weeks, citizenship or a country of residency. So in the past, we've had a lot of individuals who were, say, on a 2-year assignment in the UK, and we could just get you interviewed there. And now we're no longer going to be able to do that. It looks like even a 2-year work assignment is not going to count as residency. There's a little bit up in the air about that, where the Department of State was like, well, that might be residency, but maybe not. So we'll have more information about that. But essentially, the interview stages, there's only a few consulates in the world that are running more than 6 months. Most, if your priority date's current and you're DQ'd, you're going to get an interview in about 3 to 4 months. A few a touch bit faster, a few a little bit slower, but we only have maybe 2 right now that are outside 6 months.
Okay.
We'll work on those if they happen.
Can I ask you about a follow-up about that new change? And just to clarify that is for all types of visas, the residency slash, so even the EB3, you would need to go to the Manila embassy if you were a resident of the Philippines, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. When does that take effect?
It went into effect September 6th. So
It is in effect.
About 3 weeks ago, they announced it was going to happen and said that it would happen at some point in the future and alluded to the fact that it would happen sometime next year. And then when they released it and actually published it, they made it effective the same day they published it.
But it does not affect those who chose their embassy prior to?
It does. Yes,
it does. Okay.
Yep. I had someone who was actually at an H1, they're an H1 holder in the US from India. No ties to Peru other than the fact that he has friends that live down there from college. And Peru was taking appointments. He had an appointment scheduled for the Monday after he'd already flown down there and was hanging. The people at the consul were super nice and said, hey, we know you had an appointment scheduled. We're going to still interview because we're not told for sure what we're supposed to do, but we're not allowed to issue your visa.
Wow.
But we will let the Indian consulate know that you've already gone through the interview process. So,
okay.
Yep.
So for those who are working with us currently, our attorney team, Mike's team, will make sure to cover those details, make sure we're all set when the time does come. And certainly when folks are filing new petitions, that will be addressed as well.
Correct. So I think going forward with new petitions, we will always choose your country of citizenship, no matter what. With existing cases, if your priority date is still a 1.5 years away, we're going to wait and see if they're going to make a change on that, because historically they have used the word residency to mean different things. And so we're going to hope that there's some clarification on that. But if not, we'll simply get your case moved to wherever, your home country is. So.
Okay, great. How about F1 adjustment of status, or those living in the States, the timeline process for adjustment of status?
Yeah, so couple parts to the adjustment of status. First of all, there's biometric appointments. So shortly, usually with 30, 45 days after filing, you'll get a notice to come in for a fingerprinting at a local either USCIS office or a processing center or places like that. Then the EAD and advanced paroles are coming usually. Right now, we're seeing about 3-4 months, so they're not too backed up right now. And then after that, we're seeing some with approvals in about 8-9 months. We're seeing others that are getting scheduled for interviews And if you're getting scheduled for an interview, we're seeing that's closer to about 12, 14, 16 months to get scheduled for an interview. And then they're generally processing you at the interview. Getting an interview does not necessarily mean anything's wrong with you or your case. Used to, everyone got an interview. Okay, that was the way the process went. Then they changed the rules and said no one on the employment base needs interviews unless there's something unusual in your case. And then we had COVID that changed the rules again, where no one got interviewed. And now we're back to a situation where the Trump administration wants to interview everyone except they're going to waive certain people. And right now in our office, we're seeing about 80 to 90% of people getting the waiver and are not being interviewed. So it hasn't really, it sounded like we're going to interview lots of people, and that hasn't happened yet. It might still happen, but right now it hasn't. So
that's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things to keep in mind, there's a reference there about visa screen. You have to have the visa screen in hand to file your 485. You cannot file your 485 without the visa screen in hand. You also need now medical exams to file the 485. You cannot add them later. There is no way to make the 485 any faster. There's no premium for the 485. There never has been. And so there's just not a way to make it any faster. But one other point about visa screens, they have to stay valid all the way until you're approved. So if you got a visa screen, let's say you came in on an H1 as a med tech or something, and you wait in the retrogression line for 2 or 3 years, and now your 485 has been pending for a year, and you totally forgot about your visa screen expiring in 5 years, and now they want to interview you. If you don't have that visa screen, they will not approve you, and they'll make you file your 485 all over again after you get your visa screen again. So keep that visa screen valid until you have a green card in your hand.
Okay, and that's with a visa screen with respect to F1 students. And then, of course, the visa screen is also a requirement and needed to be valid for consular process.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And the mention of the English exam here was in reference more so to the consular process, because you will need also that English exam for your CGF&S visa screen to submit to the NVC, correct?
That is correct.
So keeping in mind that an English exam expires after, I believe, 2 years, timing that along with the visa screen will be something you'll have to take into account given where things sit with respect to the visa bulletin, correct?
Kind of, but not really, because even though the English exam is only good for 2 years, once you get the visa screen in your hand, it's the date of the visa screen expiration that controls, not the date of the English exam.
Great. Okay, so it's really the more important is that 5-year visa screen. Let's work backwards from that with respect to what we think the timeline will be.
That's right.
Okay. Any other milestones, considerations that either of you, Mikes, would like to touch base on with respect to timing? And actually, it's one that comes to my mind is, of course, the reference to consular process or those working abroad, maintaining bedside experience while you're waiting. You guys spoke about this a little bit. Just that will be of particular importance. Because our hospital clients do expect recent bedside experience at an acute care facility. Any other comments that the Mikes have before we look at a couple questions that we had come through?
Yeah, I have one relative to children. So children age out at the age of 21. They need a green card in hand by the time they're 21. Retrogression can definitely affect that. So the longer the line is in the queue, the more likely it is that you may have a child that ages out. So if you are entering this process and you have a child that's, frankly, in my mind, anything over 16 or 17 years old, I would make sure that your Valley VEMA team knows that you've got a child that old so that we can notice. That's another reason not to premium your I-140, because your child's age gets added the days your I-140 is pending. So instead of your child turning 21 on their birthday, they'll turn 21 in the eyes of the USCIS on their birthday, plus ever how many dates their I-140 has been pending. So there are some strategies you can use, but it is important to kind of understand that early on. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. And Mike Conley, any comments before we move to some questions?
No, I'll just keep banging the drum of prepare yourself. Take advantage of the time you're going to get. If you can get overseas, you can make more money and get really good experience, practice your English, and you'll be much better prepared for once you get here.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And for those who are studying in the US, you know, getting your BSN, getting to a hospital to start your career, getting your visa petition filed, and the sponsorship process started means that, you know, there will be the need to remain in visa status when your OPT expires. We haven't quite touched on any OPT or CPT conversation today, but our team walks you through also how to make sure you maintain that status, as well as the attorney team helps to make sure all papers are in order when you are ready to have your adjustment of status filed. You know, they'll request all the information they need for your I-20s from your CPT. At that point, you're probably likely going to be in an MSN or EMBA program or something to that effect to make sure you do stay in visa status. Any thoughts on that, Mike Conley?
No, not really. It's it's just going to be a long haul, and it's you're making an investment in yourself. That's the best way to think about it. And you know, our team has been working on these kinds of things for years now, and we're pretty good at it. We've got some great partners that we work with that make it, you know, somewhat easy to maintain your status and eligibility to work.
Awesome. Okay, so we're heading into the Q&A session as we have just a couple questions up here now. So anyone out there that's listening, if you have any other thoughts or concerns, do send them our way. With respect to the screen showing now, this is about how to apply for visa sponsorship and job placement. If you are an F1 or a consular overseas nurse, go ahead and visit our website and upload your resume. All that's going to do is just have one of our talent team reach out and have a conversation with you. They'll review where your resume is and let you know kind of what the next steps are. All right. So let's see. Earlier, we had a question. These are specific to, let's see. We have, let's show this one. Let's see how this works. For immigrant nurses, would you consider working on the I-140 with a new graduate who is transitioning into bedside? So I believe here the question is with respect to when you can file your visa petition if you are a new grad working here in the U.S.
I don't think that's the question.
Oh,
I think the question is, would we file an I-140 for someone who's a new grad, say in the Philippines, and is starting their bedside experience?
Excuse me. Yes. Okay.
And to that, I would say yes. And the main reason is because by the time you get here, you'll have 3 years of experience. And so you'll have, you know, met the requirements by the time you get to the United States. So it's also a really good time to start your career in your home country and then look for an opportunity outside of your home country to get that really, really good experience that will make you super successful when you get to the United States.
Okay, good point. So if someone were interested in doing that, Mike, they should do what?
They should apply and talk to one of our recruiters and let them know that they graduated and they have a new job that they're just starting, and they're really excited about their new job, and they're going to stay at the bedside until they come to the United States. And that's a good plan.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for catching that.
I'll say, you know, we went to Iloilo City 2019, right before pandemic, and we interviewed and wrote offer letters for a couple of hundred young nurses, and a lot of them were just graduating and taking their boards. Our feeling is, you know, you've got a plan. And if you work the plan, you're going to be successful. And so we want to be there to help you do that.
Great. All right. Let's see. We have a couple questions about, all right, let's talk about an F1 student. Let's talk about opportunities that are happening right now with VEMA and Valley. Mike, can you go ahead and talk about this California opportunity for F1 students?
Yeah. For the December grads, we have a hospital in Los Angeles that does residency programs every 6 months. We just had people start. We have a group of people starting on Monday. But they're planning on a January or February residency program at this facility. That one, we're working with them to allow us to have people interview and get contingent offers, so that even though you're graduating in December, you might have the opportunity to get an interview and an offer before you even graduate. It would be contingent, of course, upon your graduation, passing NCLEX. But that's the type of program we're looking for our December grads right now.
Okay, and that will, timing wise, this person is graduating in December, like you said.
You should be talking to one of our recruiters right now.
Absolutely. And then the timeline of this would work such that you can potentially interview before you graduate or even receive an offer like Mike just mentioned. And then you'll be able to plan accordingly for when to take your NCLEX and pass your NCLEX to make that start date. And of course, with respect to starting your OPT to maximize the amount of time you use for your OPT based on your start date. This is great news for this viewer right now who is thinking ahead.
Yeah, and I'll point out, if you're not in the state of California and this is a program you want to get involved with, and you interview into the program and everything's going great, you can arrange for your NCLEX through California, so that when you do take NCLEX, you're issued a California license, and you don't have to go through the process of endorsing your license from another state to California and the expense of that as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, this last question is a little bit about, it looks like a consular person who is, or I should say, living abroad. This is an RN there. Not recent bedside experience. Are they able to apply to VEMA? And then there's some questions about the visa screen and the English exam. So there's a few pieces in here, but let's just start with the easy visa screen one. As long as that visa screen is current by the time you would need it to submit to the NVC, that's what matters, correct, Mike Hammond?
Yes.
Okay. With respect to bedside experience, Mike Conley?
Again, you had bedside experience 5 years ago. You've obviously stepped away and done something else. You can have a conversation with one of our recruiters. They'll tell you, what they want to see you do is get a job at the bedside now, and then come back and talk to them again. They're not just going to say, oh, well, you did it 5 years ago, we're going to file a visa for you. We need to see commitment. We need to see people who are, yes, I haven't worked for 5 years, but I just got a job at the hospital, and I'm going to be doing this until it's time to come to the United States. That's what we're looking for. And it's okay to not work bedside for 5 years. That's fine. But there needs to be a commitment going forward that that's what you want to do, and that's what your plan is. Again, okay, I'm just telling you this because if you think that you can just come to the United States on the experience that you have from 5 years ago, I guarantee you're going to get fired. I guarantee it, because you're not ready. There's just no way you can be ready. Even nurses in the United States, they say if they stop working for 5 years, it's not like getting back on a bike. It is shocking how technology changes so fast, how expectations change so fast. You really need that relevant current bedside experience. And I'm going to just preach and preach and preach. And I know in the past we've had people who've, they had a great job and then they quit the job to take NCLEX, and then they couldn't get a job again, and it's just a disaster. So find a good job that gives you some ability to advance up the acuity ladder, and then just take the time and grind.
Absolutely. Take the time and grind. Everybody out there listening, you've got this. We've got your back. We're going to walk you through the process and help you out. We want to help you succeed. We want to see you here helping our patients in the U.S. We're right on the hour, so I will leave it to Mike Hammond. Any last comments about the visa bulletin or the process as it stands right now for anyone seeking an EB3 visa?
The only thing I would say, and this is no one's going to follow this, including myself, but don't get so caught up every month with the bulletin month to month, because it's a big picture, it's a long time, and we can get excited because it moved forward fast, and then it goes slow again, and then we're sad. And look at it from a big picture perspective as to what ultimately your goal is, and in a long view of things, whether it's 21 months or 27 months, they're really, the big picture, not that much of a difference. But hang in there. And ultimately, it's a matter of timing, not if I will, it's just when I will. So.
Thank you. Michael Conley, I'm going to give you the last word. Before I do, I want to say thank you to Jacqueline for joining us today and helping out. You will see us all again in our next webinar. Mike Conley, any last comments for our folks listening today of words of encouragement?
Patience is a great virtue.
Love it. On that, thank you everybody for joining us today, and take care. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you very much, Roxy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.